This next part, we're still going to look at equations of lines, but we're going to look at very specific equations of lines. We'll look at things that look like this, where you've got a number, an x next to it, plus a number times a y, and then on the other side you have a whole nother number by itself. A good example would be something like this: 2x plus 3y equals 6. This is an equation of a line. It's a specific form because the x and y are on the same side. It's what's called standard form. So whenever they mention standard form, this is what you should be kind of having an idea of in your head, is that you have the x and y on one side and a regular number on the other. Now, you should, if something is in standard form, you should see no fractions, and you should also see no decimals. And if possible, they really prefer if this first term is positive, if possible. That's not always possible, but they would like it to be. Okay, so standard form means we've got the x and y on the same side, a number on the other side, and we shouldn't see any fractions or any decimals. That's what we're going to start off by looking at. Well, when we're graphing lines, we said we need 2 points. We can use any 2 points that we want. Well, if something's in standard form, the easiest 2 points to find are what are called the X-Intercept and the Y-Intercept. The X-Intercept is the point where you actually hit the X-axis. The Y-intercept is where you actually hit the Y-axis. They're both points. Notice, though, in their points, for the X-intercept and the Y-intercept, you have a 0 for either X or for Y. So that's how we're going to graph things that are in standard form. We're going to find their X and Y-intercept by making a table of values, and we'll plug in a 0 for X and a 0 for Y. That will find our 2 intercepts. So notice, though, when you are actually plugging in 0 for Y, that means that you'll be looking for an X value. When you actually have the X value, that's what's going to be called your X-intercept. I don't have much room here, but it's called the X-intercept. On the other one, when we actually are plugging in 0 for X and we're trying to find our Y, that's what's going to be called our Y-intercept. Okay? So what we're going to always do is, if they want us to graph something in standard form, the easiest way is to plug in 0 for X and 0 for Y to find our 2 intercepts. And that's all we'll need to do is plot those 2 points and draw our line, because we only need 2 points. So let's continue along and take a look at an example. In this next equation, our first example, we've got 2x plus 3y equals 12. Notice it is in standard form because the x and y are on one side, the numbers on the other side by itself, and we have no fractions and no decimals. So what we want to do, and they do tell us this, is that they want us to find the x and y intercepts, which means we're going to make a table of values with x's and y's. We'll plug in a 0 for x and a 0 for y. So the first one we'll work out is plugging in the 0 for x. So we'll do that. Remember, when you make that substitution, we'll do 0 times 2 first, because that's what we have to do according to order of operations, is multiplication first. So 2 times 0 will give us 0. Well, that means that that whole piece will just vanish. That's why we like plugging in zeros. Well, notice we still had a positive 3y here, so that equals 12. And then the last step would be to divide both sides by 3, and that gets us a y equals 4. So when we plugged in 0 for x, we got out y equals 4. So we can plot that as a point of 0, 4, which means we'd be going up 4, but not left or right, because there is no x value. So notice, this is where students get confused. This is a point, we plugged in 0 for x, we got out a y value. Notice that means we're actually intersecting the y-axis. That means that what we just found is called the y-intercept. We found a y value, so it's a y-intercept. So our y-intercept is the point 0, because we plugged in 0 for x, comma, we got out y value of 4. So that is our y-intercept as a point. Should have an x and a y. And you still have to list the x even if it's 0. Now let's find the other intercept. The other intercept has us plugging in 0 for y. Well, I need to rewrite out my equation again, which was 2x plus 3y equals 12. So let's go ahead and make the swap. We're going to replace that y here with a 0, parentheses around it. Well then, notice what I end up here with is 3 times 0, which is 0, so that whole piece will just vanish. And I'll just have the 2x equals 12. Well, that's a whole lot easier to solve because I can just get away with dividing both sides by 2, which will get me, let's see, x equals 6. So when I plugged in 0 for y, I got out an x of 6. Well, that's the point 6 comma 0, which means I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the y is 0 this time, so I won't go up or down. Now this time I've got only an x value. I'm hitting the x-axis. So this one is called my x-intercept because I'm intersecting the x-axis. So my x-intercept is the point 6 comma 0. I've got my 2 points, and we said that's all that you need to graph a line. So I can play connect the dots, but make sure you go past those points and draw your arrows. It's really important to understand that lines always keep on going forever. So we only needed 2 points. You can try a third one, but you don't need to.